I've heard all the anti-EV rants now. They're too expensive, toys for the rich, useless for everyday Australians. Really? Because this MG4 Excite 51, it's about the same price as a mid-range Toyota Corolla. And it serves up more than enough driving range to get you through a working week and delivers plenty of space and style too. Honestly, this could be a game changer for EV uptake in Australia. So come with me and I'll show you why. This is the cheapest EV in Australia. Sorry, this was the cheapest EV in Australia until it was undercut by the BYD Dolphin to the tune of $100. Still, this MG4 is the second cheapest electric vehicle in the country, listing at $38,990 before on-road costs for this Excite 51 model. The 51 refers to the battery size, by the way, but we'll come back to all of that in a moment. Now outside there are 17-inch alloy wheels, LED lighting front and rear, and electric wing mirrors. And inside there's a 10.25-inch infotainment system with Apple CarPlay and Android Auto, and a second 7-inch instrument cluster in front of the driver. Now there are some reminders that this is an entry-level model, of course. The seats, for example, are cloth, the driver's seat adjusts manually, and the stereo is a 4-speaker system. But for more on what you get and what you don't in the MG4 Excite 51, head over to carsguide.com.au. Now there are two answers to the design question, I reckon, and the better of those answers begins outside. Now MG has taken to describing the MG4 as a hot hatch, and I've got to say it looks pretty sharp, right? I like how this kind of angular front end blends into a more traditional hatch body style, and there's plenty going on at the back here as well, not least of which this massive boot lip spoiler and these rear LEDs that kind of cut into the bodywork and look brilliant at night. So while it doesn't much look like an entry-level car from the outside, unfortunately it does kind of feel like one here in the cabin, at least in places. Now don't get me wrong, the tech setup all looks clean and lovely, but some of the materials used are rock hard, they feel cheap and sort of uncomfortable to lean on, and things like this little row of buttons here feel cheap and plasticky too. What I do love though is the kind of architectural design of this center stack here, and I do love this steering wheel. It's the major touch point in the car. It's the first thing you grab when you get in, and this one feels very lovely and pretty sporty. It's just over 4.3 meters long and just over 1.8 meters wide, so we're really talking small hatch dimensions here. But because it's an EV, there are some practicality perks that you just don't get in combustion engine cars. So this is a small car, of course, but there's actually plenty of room here in the back seat. I'm sitting behind my own 175 centimeter driving position, plenty of knee room, plenty of headroom, and the lack of the traditional tunnel that usually runs through the center of the cabin in an ICE vehicle means there's enough space for two passengers to spread out, or even for a third one to jump in the middle at a pinch. Now you need to remember that this is a base model car, so there's not really a lot else going on back here for backseat passengers. There's no cup holders and a pull down divider, for example, just these pockets in the doors and just a single USB port for the rear passengers to share. Now there are two more USB ports up front as well as two cup holders, and I must say there is lots of thoughtful little storage spaces, especially in the front. But even here, you've got another little space below the center console for loose items. So there's lots of thought gone into how practical the cabin can be, but there's no escaping the fact that this is an entry-level car. So MG makes a big deal about injecting a little bit of driving fun into this MG4, which rides on a platform designed to deliver a near perfect weight distribution and sends its power to the rear wheels. Now the motor in this one, the cheapest one, makes 125 kilowatts and 250 newton meters, which is enough, MG says, to deliver a sprint to 100 kilometers an hour of 7.7 seconds. But to be honest, it feels faster than that. It feels more urgent. And I think that's because the power arrives so early on that it delivers a really brisk sprint to sort of suburban speeds, those 50, 60, 70, 80 kilometers an hour before it starts to taper off. But mostly when you're cruising around the city, that's when you most want the power, right? Remember we talked about the 51 in the name here? Well, that refers to the battery size, which is the smallest on offer in the MG4 family. So as you've probably guessed, we're talking a 51 kilowatt hour battery, which should produce a driving range of 350 kilometers. Now that's the claim anyway, but to be honest, we've had this charged up to 100% and we've seen the range on screen be more like 330 kilometers. Now, you're probably thinking, is that enough? But you need to ask yourself, when was the last time you drove 330 kilometers in a single day without ever having somewhere to recharge overnight? It's really not that often, right? The very first thing you notice when you get behind the wheel of this MG4 is the silence. Most city-friendly hatches and sedans, whether they're hybrid or otherwise, are always a bit buzzy, a bit noisy, like the engine's working hard to move them along and there's a lot of sound in the cabin, but you just don't get that in an electric vehicle. Instead, the power delivery is really smooth and really constant, and it's not joined by an over-revving engine or an angry gearbox. It's just a smooth, calming experience from the moment you jump in. The other benefit, of course, is just how easy it is to get power out of an electric vehicle. Remember, this is the cheapest and least powerful model in the MG4 lineup, but it by no means feels underdone on the power front. Put your foot down, and there's an instant surge of torque that becomes quite addictive. I guess the biggest and most important point I can make here is it doesn't feel like you're driving the cheapest of something. This doesn't feel like something competing for the title of Australia's cheapest EV. It feels really complete, it feels really comfortable, and it feels really satisfying to drive. We're talking the full 5 stars from Euro NCAP here, owing at least partly to the fact that every MG4, including the cheapest one, gets the brand's Pilot Safety Suite, which is all the high-tech stuff. So you can expect active emergency braking with pedestrian and bicycle detection, adaptive cruise control with traffic jam assist, and lane keep assist with lane departure warning. Now there's more too, of course, so for the full safety skinny, head on over to carsguide.com.au. Now the MG4 is covered by MG's 7-year unlimited kilometre warranty, and there is another perk to EV ownership that you might not know about, and that's service intervals. While MG is yet to confirm the specifics for this car, we expect it to mirror the ZS EV, which, wait for it, requires servicing every 2 years or 40,000 kilometres. Pricing for those services hasn't been confirmed, but again, using the ZS as a guide, you can expect to pay close to $300 for the first service and $800 for the second, with that cycle repeating as you go on. EV sales are booming in Australia at the moment, and the arrival of cars like this MG4 Excite 51 is only going to boost them further. Honestly, this is the type of car that might have you rethinking that small petrol or hybrid hatchback, because to be frank, this is going to deliver a smoother, more satisfying drive experience every time you climb in it. Now, for my full review on this car and to read reviews on all of its competitors, make sure you check out carsguide.com.au.